Okay, today we are going to talk about the real deal of medical sales. So check this statistic out. In 2023, there was a medical sales salary report, and the average salary in 2023 was $177,000 a year. Okay, that is not bad. In California, but anywhere else in the country, that's pretty damn good. Florida, Texas, Atlanta, $177,000 a year, you're living a good life. Okay. What you don't know though is that the bottom performing 25% of reps made under $84,000 a year. Let that sink in. The average salary is $177,000 a year. The bottom 25% performing reps under $84,000 a year. I don't care where you are. If you're trying to raise a family on $84,000 a year, that's going to be a bit of a challenge in the United States. So everyone's attracted to this six-figure salary. Medical sellers make all the money. You better love the money as well as impacting patients. But yeah, the money is amazing. And it is. But do you have what it takes to ensure you are not part of the 25% bottom of the industry making under $84,000 a year? And that is the real question that anybody that wants to be in medical sales needs to ask themselves. So let's get into it. The real deal of medical sales. Let's talk about the market. Let's talk about, everybody hears medical sales, medical sales. What is medical sales and how big is it actually? So what you guys might not know is the global med tech market. Okay. So think big, grandiose global med tech market. By the end of this year, 2025, the global med tech market will surpass about $600 billion. Okay. And when you throw in pharma, diagnostics, when you throw in med tech software, which I didn't even include in the original medical sales number I gave you, the number will exceed the medical sales ecosystem. The number of dollars involved exceeds 2 trillion. So the short and sweet of it is medical sales is a huge industry and it's growing very fast. With AI and with how quickly technology increases. Remember, technology is not linear. It's not a linear increase. Technology is an exponential increase. And AI just makes it an extra exponential increase. So the money is massive. And medical sales remains the pivotal point between the innovation in tech and the impact in a patient's life, right? That's why medical sales is such a cool space, because it's absolutely necessary. You cannot have a thriving society without it, meaning your job as a medical sales rep will forever be needed. So for you to become one, it's critical. If you want job security, if you want to make great money with job security forever and have an impact and work with the most educated people in the world, medical sales, there's no better place to be than in a medical sales career. This is it. This is cream of the crop. With that being said, because it's growing so fast, because there's so much money involved, and because the bottom 25% are making under $84,000 a year, you need to put yourself in position to deliver, right? Your work ethic has to be there. Your consistent education and learning and desire to learn has to be there. And your ability to be coached well and think on your feet and think fast has to absolutely be there. I think what makes this industry so cool outside of what you get is what it drives you to become, right? To be a killer. I mean, I'm talking a player in the game where you're because of you, your territory is bigger than life. You're impacting patients, you're changing practices, all because of you and the representation you have for your company. And you're just a killer. You make it happen. You gotta be able to build yourself to become that person, right? That person doesn't happen automatically. That person is refined and forged through effort and the desire to want to make that difference. And that's the beauty of medical sales, because it kind of, if this industry calls you and you step into it, that's who it calls you to become. In my opinion, that's living your version as your best self, right? If you're operating at this level of life, and now to get the results you want to get, you have to operate at this level of life through the education you give yourself, through the work ethic you lay on yourself, and through the relationships you develop, and how strong you build those relationships to drive action and drive change. I mean, you're a whole different person. So that's the beauty of medical sales, and that's the reality of medical sales. So when we're talking about medical sales, oh, you should be in medical sales. Why medical sales? This is why. This is big stuff here. This is a big industry with big money, with big opportunity, and big change in patients' lives. So because we're talking about the real deal of medical sales, we have to talk about all the different types of medical sales. Another thing I don't think people realize is medical sales does not mean medical device sales. Medical sales does not mean pharmaceutical sales. Medical sales does not mean biotech sales. Medical sales means all of it. Pharma, medical device, biotech, and the list goes on. And you got to know where you fit. But before you can know where you fit, you got to know what is involved, what is out there, what are the different types of medical sales to get into. And they're all a little different. They're all a little different on the call point. They're all a little different on the daily routine. They're all a little different in their challenges. And of course, they're all a little different in their solutions. So let's go over the 6 classes I want you to think of. Now, there are many thought leaders in this space of medical sales, but we've done a lot of research as a company, Evolve Success. So we have a lot of data on what continues to resurface as the main framework for the different types of medical sales. So I'm going to lay them for you, and I like to call them the big 6. So number 1, you have pharma. Okay. So what is pharma? Pharma is drugs. That's it. It's not complicated. Pharma is the selling of drugs, plain and simple. Your goal is to get in front of a decision maker, most of the time a physician, and get them to say, I am going to use your drug for my patients. After pharma, you have medical device. Medical device, as the name implies, is devices. Oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes that is procedural driven, meaning these surgeons are using these devices in a procedure, a surgery, and you are the rep in that surgery, assisting them in using the device. That is medical device. So you have to understand a lot about how the hospital works, how to get in, who to talk to, who's in the room with you, and of course, how to manage yourself and the type of help you can actually give the surgeon when they're going through the procedure. So we got 2 so far, pharma and med device. Then you got biotech. So what is biotech? Biotech is a blend of pharma and device, because biotech are usually innovative spaces, oftentimes in rare disease, where it's either a device, a drug, or a device/drug. And, you need, usually in biotech, you need a good bit of experience. So often in biotech, you'll see a lot of pharma reps that are at the top of the ladder, a lot of medical device reps at the top of the ladder, and they're looking for the big money and the better flexibility and lifestyle. And they're saying, you know what, I'm going into biotech. Very, 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 very high on the innovation. And that's biotech. So biotech, you got to bring even that much more experience to the table when considering biotech as opposed to pharma or med device. So we got med device, we got pharma, we got biotech. Then you got medical supply. So medical supply is like ancillary, all the things outside of drugs, all the things outside of actual devices and their actual supplies. So wound care could be considered under medical supply. Beds can be under medical supply. Catheters can be under medical supply. Anything that assists what goes on medically from a tangible material-based perspective, that's medical supply. Medical supply is very friendly to people that have no experience whatsoever. And of course, it's very friendly to anyone that comes from pharma or med device or biotech. Medical supply also has a lot of opportunity because the money oftentimes can really be huge because they're very commodity-like products. Catheters, for example. Everybody needs catheters. Wound care. Everybody needs wound care. So the numbers you can really rack them up if you're a powerful salesman that has amazing grit, knows how to get it done quickly. There's a lot of money to be made in those spaces, just like there is in device and biotech and including pharma. So we got pharma, we got biotech, we got medical device, we got supplies. Then you got SaaS. What is SaaS? SaaS is the software. That is growing rapidly. And the beauty of software, ever since COVID, now you can work from home. All these positions you work from home, but you're in the field for most of them. For SaaS, oftentimes you don't need to be in the field. Now, there are a lot of SaaS positions where you're in the field, but there are a lot what's over the phone. It's on a Zoom call. So it gives an opportunity to someone to kind of work remotely have options. And of course, there's a lot of big money to be made. You land a big contract with a big organization within healthcare. They need your software for the whole system. Big contract, big money. You get a cut of that. It can be very significant, and you're still impacting healthcare. So what do we got here? We got pharma, we got med device, we got biotech, we got medical supply, we got SaaS, and then the sixth one, and also with supply, we talk about diagnostics. We can talk about things like that. And then the sixth one I like to say is dentistry. And you know what? I'll let you guys decide, but you can kind of put diagnostics into, we'll keep that in supplies. Dentistry is a little bit of its own space because it's still medical sales, but of course it's very specific to dentistry. But the reason why it gets its own category is because dentistry is very, very big and it's very, very necessary. I mean, let's be honest. Every single person listening to this right now has been to the dentist. Not every single person has had a certain procedure in medical. Not every single person has had a drug that's sold in pharma. Not every single person has had a biotech innovation that even in their family has been used. And not every single person has necessarily benefited from every single supply, but every single person listening right here has been to a dentist. And that's why dentistry has its own category. So these are what I like to call the big six. And they all have a different way of selling. Like I said, with pharma, your goal is to get into a clinic usually and get in front of a decision maker, which is typically a physician, and get them to say, I'm going to use this drug for this patient. Whereas in device, your goal is to get in front of a procedural, with a surgeon or someone doing these procedures and get them to say, I trust you to help me make better decisions for your product while you sit in here or stand in here and work with me to make sure that I'm doing this the right way. Whereas supplies, it's often not with a physician or a surgeon or anything like that. It's with someone that's deciding on how much inventory this entity should have with the products you sell. Whereas dentistry, it's usually with dentists and the dentist staff or an orthodontist. Or with biotech, it can be a whole slew of different opportunities where you have a little bit of hospital, a lot of clinic, and vice versa. So the goal is get clarity on which lane you want to play in. Now, a lot of you, I'm going to say it, should not be in all lanes. I'm going to say it right now. Some of you have no business doing pharmaceutical sales. Some of you have no business doing medical device sales. And some of you have no business doing SaaS or medical supplies. But only you know that. I don't know that. Now, if you talk to me and we work with you, then we figure that out very quickly. But right now, you listening right now, you do know that. And if you don't know that, the beauty is you can find out. And that's what you got to give yourself the opportunity to find these things out. Find out where you should be. All right. So we're talking real deal medical sales. So of course, we can't talk about all these things and the impact we're making if we don't talk about the money that's being made. Like I said before, if you're in medical sales and you're a performer, you're going to make money. I'll own that right now. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, you won't make any money. But if you're not a performer, remember, the bottom 25% are making under $84,000 a year, which is just a hard life if you want to raise a family and take life to big, better and beyond. So let's talk about what it looks like from associate sales rep to manager to executive. Now, all those different verticals I just listed, the six, they look a little different. So I'm going to speak very generally here. Do not try to hang me up and say, well, Samuel said, this is general. Okay. General, meaning ballpark. I'm not going to say grain of salt, but 10 grains of salt. Take it with 10 grains of salt because this is still general and it's nuanced. And we've seen amazing things in our program. So what I'll say is this. Generally speaking, an associate sales rep is making anywhere from 70 to 110, 120,000 OTE. What does OTE stand for? OTE stands for at plan, meaning when you have your base pay and your commission and it's all put together and considered, you're looking at 70 to 120. 70 on the very, very low end, 120 on the higher end. With that being said, we've seen professionals get as high as 150 starting. It's amazing. And we've seen it. We've seen people as low as 75 starting, and that's okay. We've seen it. One thing I like to tell people is don't get hung up on your first year salary. You have to get what you can sustain. So do not take a job that's 20 grand below what will pay the bills. That's just not smart, right? You're going to screw everyone. Get a position that you can sustain the bills, no problem. If it's not super high or it's not quite six figures, but you can do it, do it, because here's the beauty of that. You kill it your first year. I mean, you knock it out of the park your first year, which you will if you're getting the right resources. No, we have a program that helps you do that called MedSales Bootcamp. If you're killing it your first year, I mean, just knocking it out of the park. When you're done with that year and a half, the world's yours. I'm not joking. You'll most likely be able to get any position you want relatively connected to that same vertical if you kill it. If you're a mid-level performer, you'll still be able to get a decent job with a small 10 to 15% increase. But if you're not performing, then you're probably going to be stagnant. As we just talked about, the bottom 25%, under $84,000 a year. So associate sales reps, 70 to 100, 110. Next, you have sales reps. Sales reps is much sweeter, 110 to 200. Now, there are some industries that will give you that 200. There are some industries that absolutely won't. There's some industries that they're almost like 1099, where you're getting like a 50, 60 base. But if you're getting the numbers, you're breaking 250. There's all kinds of nuances. If you want to get more of those nuances and exactly what they look like, we have an amazing tool called MedSales Match that will give that to you. If you're interested in that, make sure you find me on LinkedIn. Matt, send me a DM, type in match, we'll get you in there. But the point is, sales reps, you're looking at around, 100, 100, low end 100 to about 200 for sales reps. Some sales reps do make under that, but the commission usually brings it up to at least meet that 6-figure mark. Then you have mid-level manager. Most level managers, they're rocking from 200 to 350. Okay, 200 to 350. That's really cool. And you get big bonuses on that when your team is performing. So a mid-level manager means you've been a rep, you've been an individual contributor, you've proven your worth. The company's like, this person needs to be leading teams. They put you into a manager position. Now you're making much bigger money. But your money is contingent upon how well your team does. But you're usually hovering around 300, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, depending on the vertical. And then, of course, beyond a manager is a senior leader, and that's 300 to 400 and up. Now, and up, I mean, I don't need to sell you guys on this. You guys have heard of the CEOs and the C-suites, even presidents of divisions in medical sales companies making, $1 million a year. That is very real. That is very real. Some of these big companies, the C-suites, some of them make 2 million to 4 million a year, and that's not even the CEO. So this is very real. And if you want that life, you can have it. But don't think that they weren't the top of their industry. I mean, people that get to those spaces, they were killers from day one, and they never stopped. Now, from my experience, a lot of people do not care to have that. A lot of people just kind of want to find that sweet spot, making about 300 to 500 a year. They're doing well. They have work-life balance. They've been in the industry for long enough, and they have a nice, healthy retirement. They are with their family, doing whatever they want to do, and life is good. And that's the beauty of medical sales. It really is up to you. You can be a millionaire if you want to work that hard and get there. You can be a mid-millionaire, half millionaire, 500,000 if you want to work that hard and get there. Or you can hang out at, 200, 300, doing your job, doing it well, being consistent, and enjoying life and having a really, really, really nice work-life balance. That is your choice. Not every single medical sales position is going to give you that evenness, but it's so vast that if you're serious and committed, you will absolutely find it. And if you're a performer, and I'll say this again, if you're a performer, you will definitely find it, right? And what does it mean to be a performer? It doesn't mean you were just born one or not. It means you're the person that is becoming what the industry needs. And the industry needs someone who desires to increase their education, desires to increase their work ethic, and desires to create amazing relationships that drive behavioral change. If that is you, and you are committed to working on those 3 areas for the rest of your life, the world is yours when it comes to medical sales. All right, so real deal medical sales. Now we're going to talk about what the job actually looks like. I think with the movies, I think it's the movies that did it. The movies and the TV shows glamorized medical sales, and they make it look like golf and, baseball games and basketball games and trips here and there and just chilling with your feet up. And man, it's funny because I'm not going to say that couldn't be farther from the truth, but that is far from the truth. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys some context here. All right. So the average rep, this is average. Again, for those reps listening that are watching this right now and thinking, what is Samuel about to say? Can't hang me up on this because I'm generalizing things here for context for everyone to get some understanding on what this actually entails. For the average rep, you're seeing about 120 to 160 accounts you're responsible for in a territory. And you're given a range to cover. And in some cases, some reps are going up to 2,000 miles of range in the territory, multiple states. And in some cases, some reps are covering, a couple cities. I mean, not a couple, but 5 to 10 cities or 15 cities. So you're given a range, you get a number of accounts in that range, and you're responsible for managing those accounts and getting them to do whatever they're supposed to be doing. Using your device, selling your drug, using your drug for their patients, using your supply, using your software, what have you. Okay. And depending on the vertical meaning the type of medical sale, your day's going to look a little different, right? What I want to stress is that the reality of a high performing sales rep is not lackadaisical. It's not golf. It's not chilling. It's not going to baseball games. And it's not that. And if that even exists, it's a very small fraction of your day, of your time, of your energy. Most of your energy is everything that happens in between to even think about doing things like that. And that's the long hours, right? For the pharma rep, that's the getting up early to make sure you know where you're going, pre-call every single plan you have, and knocking out of the park for every interaction you give yourself the opportunity to take, and doing that until 6, 5:30, 5, 6, and making sure you've seen a certain number of accounts every single day with consistency. For the medical device rep, that's waking up, sometimes in some cases 3 or 4 a.m., getting to the hospital, getting everything prepped for surgery, and then grinding it out until, surgeries end. And in some positions that can be 2, in some positions that can be 7 p.m. So it just depends on your vertical. And then all the in-between time is making sales. So in device, you have surgeries to attend and you got to make sales. In pharma, you're making sales all day. In biotech, you might have a little bit of both and you're making sales all the time. In medical supplies, you're making sales all the time. In capital equipment, where you're selling those big machines, you're making sales all the time. And they all require strategy. They all require business insight and analysis. They all require planning how to approach each customer and each call point. At least to be a top tier performing rep, they require these things. We teach these things very detailed in Mensa's bootcamp for a reason, because when you're a truly performing rep, you're getting granular with how you attack your territory. And the reality is, sales in general attracts entrepreneurs. Medical sales attracts entrepreneurs because of that, right? Because the true sense of it is your territory is your business. And you're the person running your business, your territory, and you got to come up with everything to make it run and perform and hit those goals that your company has established to impact those patients. And that is your business. And based on how well your business is running, you get paid. If you want to boil it down to the simplest equation, that's it right there. You run your business well, you get paid. You run your business poorly, you don't get paid, or you lose the business, aka you lose your job. And that is the nature of medical sales. So, don't be fooled. Now, does this golf and basketball game still exist? Yes, I'm happy to say they do. Not the way you think, though. So, and I'm going to give a little bit of background into where this came from. So back in the 80s and 90s, okay, when all this was new and there wasn't the pharma guidelines and device guidelines and the Sunshine Act and all these things that now have to be followed to the rigor, there was a lot of almost like paying healthcare to do what you wanted to do. Like anything, that all got regulated very quickly. And a lot of ethics were thrown into that, thank God. And now that just can't exist. But on the flip side, these companies, when they make a breakthrough drug that changes lives or a breakthrough device that changes lives, as you know, they make a lot of money and they can afford to do things for the people that are driving that kind of success. So what happens now in all pharma, all device, all medical sales, I'm just going to say it, all medical sales, unless it's a small company still trying to figure it out. But in most big to large companies, the sales reps that are the top of the top and consistently performing, they get like a trip. And this trip happens every, quarter. No, that's a lie. Every year based on quarterly performance. Some companies might do more than that, but most companies it's once a year based on quarterly performance. And these trips, they'll send them to Paris or, to some resort somewhere, just something really, really nice, all expenses paid, to reward them for the hard work, the long hours, the waking up, the making sure the business is handled and these patients' lives are impacted. That's the reward. So yeah, and on those trips you might do some golf, but that happens a week out of a year after you've just grinded for a full year. So it's not this happy-go-lucky thing. What attracts people to medical sales, though, is, like I said, you got to become this person that's operating at a completely higher level than your current self. And on top of that, these people love this, right? People that perform consistently in medical sales, never leave medical sales, a lot of them truly love what they do. They love the impact they're making on patients. They love becoming better and better and better. They love being able to develop these amazing relationships with the most educated people on the planet and maintain those relationships long term. And they love being able to lead others to do the same thing. That's one reason why I loved it. We're not just doing this for the money or for the once a year trip, or we're doing this because we truly love the work that's required to do it. So as you're assessing whether medical sales is for you, and we're talking about the real medical sales here, think about that. Think about, once you figure out where your lane is, and once you figure out what the day-to-day of that lane is, once you figure out, can I see myself doing it? And you can, then take it a step further and say, can I see myself doing this for the next 10 years? Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but maybe. And if you do love it, then you could be that CEO or that VP or that manager or that sales rep that's just consistently killing it and loving their life. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about when it comes to the real medical, we're almost done here. We got a few more, I think one or two more. But the next thing we're going to talk about when it comes to the real medical sales is, what do you need to succeed in medical sales? So let's talk about it. So there was another study. I love studies because, and you'll learn this too. In medical sales, it's all studies. Now, certain verticals lean on studies more than others, but the fact is, in order for any of these drugs, devices, innovative products to go anywhere and do anything, studies are involved. Maybe not so much with software, but when it comes to devices and drugs and biotech devices and drugs, absolutely. So studies are something that I have a very big passion for. And I don't make my decisions off of every single thing has to be a study, but I'm not going to lie in that it's hard for me to say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, until I've seen some serious research or data or a study behind it that can support that. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. So when we're talking about what managers, what managers need to see, and the real medical sales and what's needed, what's required to be a true medical sales rep, you want to know what they said? Number one, 91% of hiring managers said that they need to see coachability. That is chief. And that makes sense, right? Like, how are you going to be doing this job if you're not coachable? There's so much learning available, and there's so many things you need to learn, that if you're hard-headed, it's going to be a bear to want to have anything to do with you, whether you're the customer or the manager. Second is communication. And this makes sense. Sales reps talk all day. And actually, that's not even true. They listen all day. They talk too, but they listen more. They should be listening more than they talk. And you're doing a lot of listening. And then after all that listening, you're doing all this processing. After all that processing, you are doing talking to get better and do better listening to eventually get to why my solution makes sense for your problem. That requires amazing communication. So hiring managers say, when it comes to being an amazing medical sales rep, what they need to see from you is you got to be coachable. You absolutely have to be coachable, and you better be a great communicator. You know what was the lowest on the list? Okay. Everyone's going to freak out because they're going to be like, wait a second, that's not what I... The lowest on the list was past experience. That was the lowest on the list. Why is past experience one of the lowest things on the list of what you need to be an effective medical sales rep? I'll tell you why. Because yes, it helps to know what already goes on. Of course. Yes, it helps to have some insights in the industry. Absolutely. But what no one talks about are the bad habits. See, when a rep is in an environment for a while, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, especially with the same company, they develop habits. And in some cases, some reps develop bad habits. And the reality of any hiring manager is, you're trying to figure out, do I see any red flags of a habit? And if I do, and I still want them, what is it going to take to get that habit out of there, right? Whereas with a new rep, it's a blank canvas, unless you got something else going on that your background shows. So past experience is valuable, but it's one of the lowest because it's not the most valuable. It's better to be an extremely coachable person that's a powerful communicator with amazing work ethic than someone with past experience that has a lot of bad habits. So keep that in mind when it comes to what it means and what it takes to be an amazing rep in this space. Got to be coachable, and you got to be a great communicator. And of course, without saying, you better have amazing work ethic and grit. All right, so we're coming to a close now. And the last thing I want to talk about is when it comes to the real medical sales is what is the hardest part about breaking into medical sales? So the hardest part about breaking into medical sales is the only way I can say it is giving up. That's the best way to say it. A study showed that 250 applicants apply to a position, any medical sales position on the average. 250 plus applicants. In some cases, 300 or 400. And 2.4% get an interview out of those 250 applicants that apply. What realistically happens with a lot of people is they experience rejection once, twice, 10 times, and they're like, you know what? This ain't for me. I'm tired. I'm moving on. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's right or wrong, because that's not my place. I am going to tell you, though, that rejection is part of this game. You know, I used to really be bothered by how often candidates get rejected. I still am. If you check my LinkedIn content, you'll see me just raving and raving about that all the time. Like, what the heck? You know, especially when, someone goes through a 5-step interview process and number 6, then you let him go. It's like, what the hell is going on? With that being said, at the same time I hate it, I respect it, because the rejection you feel in the real world of a medical sales position is deep. And it's one thing to get rejected when there's nothing on the line. Yeah, you don't like your job. Yeah, you want to make more money. Yeah. But the fact remains, before you start applying to these medical sales positions, you are living, you are eating, you are okay. When you get this job, though, you might double, triple your income. Your family's excited. The people depend on you is excited. You're excited. The company that has hired you is excited. And now you got pressure. Because if you don't deliver, we will take it away. Mark my words, we will take it away. And in order to handle pressure, let me put it this way. People that handle pressure the best, why do you think that is? Were they born that way? No. Did they read a book to get that way? Absolutely not. People that handle the pressure the best have been to those situations 1,000. That is the only thing. The difference between handling pressure and not being able to handle the pressure is the difference between the person that can handle the pressure has experienced enough times something like this, and the person that can't has not. So if you're in the process and you're giving up because of applications, no, that can't be, right? That can't be. That won't cut it. You got to suck it up. And the reason why most people don't get the job and give up, or it leads to giving up, is because they don't have direction. The beautiful thing about 250 people applying to every position and only 2.4 getting interviews, think about the data that can be collected on what actually works. I mean, we're a data company. I like to say we're AI-infused company. We use people to coach our professionals that are actually in medical sales, but we use AI to crunch all this data on what's actually happening, what actually works. And when you have that much data, you can dial it down to a process that consistently does what it's supposed to do. And you can repeatedly see how you give these tools and this information, and you work on this thing with these people, and they consistently get this result. It cuts out the noise. It cuts out all the trials and tribulations of not doing the right thing. And it gets them down to, I do this, and this, and boom, here I am. Now, of course, a lot of things are discovered along the way. Like, did you have any work ethic? Are you coachable? Really? Do you really care to be in this space? Do you know what you want? All those things get discovered and figured out. But the point is, we have so much data on what actually works. And for anyone that wants to get into medical sales, you need to get some direction. It is not enough to just try. Now, you can. You might even get lucky and get a position. But what we keep seeing is when someone goes in with no direction, either they don't get it, or when they get it, they lose it within 6 months. Don't be that person. Get some direction. That's going to wrap us up today. If you are serious about getting some direction and getting to medical sales, DM me, Match on LinkedIn. Find me, Samuel Adeyinka. DM me. If we're not connected, connect with me, put Match. If we are connected, put Match, and we will get you into our community and get you the MedCircle Sales Match tool. That's going to give you all these classes we talked about, exactly what happens in them, how much they get paid, and what you got to do to get the right direction to actually get in this industry. See you on the side. Let's get started.